You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. Well, I'm sitting here today with Mike Stewart at the Blacksburg-Roanoke Regional Airport. And I'm so glad to have you, Mike, today. Thank you for taking your time. And I love this airport. I've lived here 30 years. I've flown in and out countless times, and I've always had the best experience. And one of the reasons, I think, is because we're a relatively low-density population area. But I want you to tell us about, let's start first with what kind of path you took to become the executive director of this awesome airport.
Well, thank you, Linda. It's my pleasure being here with you. Love talking about aviation. So I would roll all the way back to my high school days when the aviation bug bit me. I went to Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and got my degree in aviation. Started off wanting to fly, like a lot of kids do.
Wow.
And found out that it takes a lot of money or perfect eyesight to get the hours in the military.
Oh, yeah.
So I decided to stay on the ground. After I got my degree, I went to work for a little airline based down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that a lot of people don't recognize now, but Piedmont Airlines was the original airline of the Carolinas.
That's right. I remember Piedmont.
We were purchased and merged into U.S. Airways back in '89. So I spent the first half of my career in the airline industry between Piedmont and U.S. Airways. And then I worked for a little airline called Atlantic Coast Airlines, which became Independence Air. We were based up at Dulles for about 18 months before we ran out of business in a really bad time of the industry.
Yeah.
But all of that got me to the point where I decided to get out of the uncertain side of the aviation business, which is the airlines, and jump to the airport side.
Gotcha.
Went to work for the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. Spent about almost 15 years with them. Everything from manager airline affairs to when I left, I was vice president airport manager at Washington Dulles International.
Well, there was a big job.
It was a lot of fun. As I say, a lot of times it's kind of like being the mayor of a city. It's not what I do; it's what the team out there does.
That's right.
And when this job came open, I saw it, and we had lived here back in the early '90s as a U.S. Air Station manager. I had 2 of my 4 children were born down the road here in Salem. So we had always said this was one of those areas that we would definitely move back to if we had an opportunity. When this job opened up, I was in a position where I could take a full retirement from Dulles and come do what I love doing. And it was an opportunity that I feel like I've still got a lot to offer and can help grow this airport and help the community. So
well, you've got
it's been a win-win situation for me.
And you have all that wonderful experience. So you were blessed to get back here, and we're blessed to have you.
Oh, I hope so.
What are some of your main responsibilities? What in the world does an executive director do? So
it's kind of, in this environment, it's a little different because I don't have the staff of multitude that I had up north, but it's still very much similar to a chief executive anywhere else. It's just a very strange business. We have over 1,000 people that work on the airport's property, but only about 75 of them work for me.
Right.
So it is. We have a tremendous group of people here, and I'll tell you, my number one job is leading them and appreciating them. But we do everything from that most people don't think we do. We're the ones that make sure that the runway is safe, that you have the ability to get in and out of this airport and through it. And really, the airlines are our customers. We lease space to them so that they can provide service to our region. So we try to do everything we can to enable them to keep our costs low so that they can hopefully make a good profit and stick with us. But safety, security, finance, administration, regulatory compliance, those are all kind of the buzzwords of the business. But it's whatever comes at me. It's kind of it truly is the buck stops here.
Well, speaking of that, I live not too far from this airport in Northwest County, and there are lots of geese around. Do you have a problem with these geese on the runways at all?
We watch them very closely. We've got a couple of flocks. We work with the city a lot because we've got a pond across the street that attracts them.
Yeah.
So those always worry you, as do deer, bear, anything else that gets out on the airfield. So we have A lot of people wonder why we have an 8-foot fence with 3 strands of barbed wire going around the property. It's twofold. One is to keep people out that shouldn't be in here, and the other is to keep animals out that shouldn't be in here.
Right.
So you end up trying to do that, but birds are certainly always a challenge. A single goose is not too bad. A flock of them, as we know, can be really bad. And we do our best to make sure they find a home somewhere other than the airport.
Well, when you're speaking about the fence and all that security, I have to share this because it's so funny. I graduated from Duke, and and that was a long time ago, and that was before they fenced off the airfields. Mm-hmm. And so we used to go out as kids and get at the very end of the runway and lie down because there was no fence to stop you.
Absolutely.
And it was just a prank, but we would all lie down. We weren't going to hurt anything, but there was nobody chasing after us. We would lie down and let those planes take off right over us because there was a tree line right behind us. So, they had to go up, but it was just exciting. Just to feel that power at the end of the runway. It gave me a thrill back then, and I can still think of it as, such a fun and crazy time.
Absolutely. Where are all those people going? I think that's in everybody's minds.
That is right. You've got a leadership style. How do you think it influences the operations here at the airport? I know you bring all of this experience, but what other insights?
I think the biggest thing, we've got a tremendous team here, and they were most of them were here before I got here. I've added to it, and we've restructured a little bit. But my style is, as I tell people, I still have big airport taste, but I've got a smaller airport budget. Mm-hmm. So I try to encourage people, don't start off at no. Let's think of what the right answer should be. And if we can't afford it right now, we'll find a different way to do it. But let's not start off saying we can't do something just because we're a small airport.
So is your biggest challenge the finances? In other words, you can't run an airport unless you have lots of people. The more people that utilize this airport, the better off it is for everybody, right?
Absolutely. The airport its primary role is to serve the public that we have flying in and out of here, and to be an economic stimulus for the entire economy around us. So in 2018, the state Department of Aviation for the state did a economic impact study on the airports. They're actually updating that right now. But back in, I'll call it 2016, it was a 2018 report. This airport the economic impact was about $500 million. And that comes out direct expenses at the airport.
So $500 million?
$500 million.
Okay.
But that is, you think about all the people that work here, and out of that 1,000 people, because 75 work for the airport, and most people think we fly airplanes or load bags or park airplanes. None of that is my staff. That's all airline work. But all those people not only are here, they're drawing wages, but they go out and spend those wages. There are companies that rely on the airport here to do business, certainly fuel companies that sell aviation fuel that truck all that fuel in.
Right.
So all of our general aviation flyers and supporting them. So there's a lot of money moving around out there that people don't readily associate with aviation, that are really without the airport. And I think the biggest thing I could tell you is sometimes you look at the value of the airport in different lens. In Washington, when the RFP went out for Amazon's HQ2, mm-hmm. prominent in the middle of that RFP was it's got to be close to an international airport. And that really tells you what big corporate images are for aviation. You've got to have that ability to move your employees in and out. If you go down the road and talk to the folks at Carillion and the research center, they're going to tell you they need direct connections to get people in and out, whether it's doctors, researchers. All that's part of what the airport helps provide, but we don't drive it.
Right.
The community drives it. It is the people that fly that, as I always put it, puts their rear end in the seat is what drives how much air service we have.
Well, it's a very accessible property. Absolutely. Because it's only 3 miles from downtown, yep. And it's actually within the city limits.
Absolutely.
But just right at the edge of North Roanoke County.
3 minutes downtown, 3 minutes to I-81, and within 2 hours of, and we call our catchment area 2 hours of the airport. We have about 1.6 million people in that 2-hour catchment area.
Wow.
So we filter out a few that may be closer to a bigger airport than we are. But everybody else we think is somebody that could potentially fly out of ROA.
How many flights?
We go out and recruit them.
How many flights a day?
So we've got 9 airlines flying nonstop service to 4 or 5 major hubs. But we run anywhere from 18 to 22 flights a day typically. Some of them, like Allegiant, flies to 3 cities in Florida. They fly a few times a week, not every day.
Right.
But we have service daily to some of the biggest hubs in the world: Charlotte, Atlanta, Washington, D.C.,
mm-hmm.
Chicago. And then we've got great service to Philadelphia, New York. We've got Delta and American both flying to New York.
And those are called one-stop flights, right?
Those are all nonstop flights.
Oh, those are nonstops.
Those are all nonstop flights. So when you go to those hubs and make that one stop and that one connection, you can basically go anywhere in the world.
That's like 415 or something. I was checking out your website.
Absolutely.
And then that's your door to international flying.
Yep.
As well.
As I call it, that's the steps to the global aviation system.
How do you, well, you've already talked about what your great staff is. I do notice out there today that your parking lots are full. You're doing a big improvement. What other infrastructure stuff? In other words, that will be done when? When will that big?
So we're expecting to be done by June.
Okay, good.
This actually started about a year and a half ago. It would have been nice to have gotten the parking lot done during the pandemic when there weren't near as many cars out there. But it is what it is, so we're getting it done, and they have to do it in phases. When we planned this about a year and a half ago, this was a great time of the year to take the biggest chunk of spaces out. It's a good problem to have, but we've seen about a 15% increase in passenger enplanements over that period. We've added a new Sarasota flight on Allegiant, so we're pushing it, and I'm a little worried about spring break, but we've been encouraging people to use other transportation to get to the airport. We've also opened up, when we get completely full, we're running a remote operation, have a little shuttle bus to run people back and forth. But it is, again, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
That is our number one source of revenue, and that's how we not only pay for our improvements here, but also help keep the cost down for the airlines so that they can be profitable.
Well, this airport was really started. Let's take a quick look at the history to see all the improvements you have, because it really went in some very significant stages. It was private investors that started this first, a couple of interested pilots, the Kennedy family that had a farm here. You originally leased 136 acres from them. And this was back in 29 and 30. And the first flights...
We're just about 95 years old now.
Yeah, isn't that something? And the first flights went out of here in 1933. Then there was a significant input during World War II, correct?
Government money, federal money. Yep.
That's right. And you were able to, expand your terminal and, expand your runways.
Yep. And a couple of times. Then they actually took a runway out. There used to be 3 runways here. And they kind of took one out that was a short runway that was pointed at one of the mountain peaks. It wasn't a good place to point at. But it really is, in the late 80s, the Airport Commission was formed. There's still a lot of people that think that the airport is city run, and it hadn't been in a long time. But it is a commission that's appointed by the City of Roanoke, City of Salem, and the County of Roanoke.
And there are 5 members on that commission.
There's actually
seven now. Okay.
So when they added Salem a few years ago, that bumped one more up for Roanoke City because they have a supermajority clause in it. But we are a subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And our purpose here is to operate this airport properly, safely, and securely, and serve the public. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Is we want to make ourselves as reliable as we can. Be here for the airlines to fly. We get a lot of questions about air service. I spend a significant amount of time on the road talking to airlines, convincing them that we have a business case that we need service to X, Y, Z. I get a lot of suggestions on where X, Y, and Z need to be, but we do a lot of research on what actually makes sense for the airlines. Because if it's not profitable for them, they're not going to get into it.
Can you do a couple of ideas come to mind that if you had the next bundle of money, what would be 1 or 2 things that you think would benefit this airport?
So we've got a couple of things. One is there's been a lot of talk about a runway extension. We have, and I view that as an enabling project. We have right now, we rely on an exception from the FAA that the standards have changed for what we call runway safety areas. One of which is you need about 1,000 feet at the end of each runway to provide a good safety margin for airplanes that may land short, take off, run long. We don't have that, and it's just because the standard has changed since the airport was built. We've looked at all 4 directions to try to figure out how could we lengthen these runways and then put that 1,000 feet on the end of both. And it's not an easy challenge. You can't go north because today the commercial airlines won't take off in anything other than completely clear sunlight to go towards the mountains.
Right, gotcha.
We have some really tough challenges going to the north. Someone had the bright idea back in the 80s to put a shopping mall to the south of us, which makes it very expensive to get to, plus crossing Hirschberger. You can't really go east because there's a tremendous drop in elevation going the further east that we go there. We've extended that runway once, which is where the tunnel is for Airport Road. But anything else, you basically got to build a mountain to be able to extend that runway out.
Wow.
Very, very expensive. So it kind of leaves us going west. And that there's a little obstacle there called I-581. And that makes that a very pricey proposition. We would need to rely just about solely on federal funds, a little bit of state funds, a lot of local funds. So to be able to do that, we've really got to have a business case. And for an airport our size, with the projected growth that this region has over the next 20 years, we just don't pencil when it comes to the FAA's math and deciding whether it's something that will pay for itself.
Right.
So we are working very hard to convince them that that is the right way for the airport to grow in the future. And it's really that safety issue. We don't want to rely on an exception. The airport's perfectly safe as it is, but you don't ever want to have something out there that could change, because if they came in tomorrow and said we got to put 1,000 feet at the end of the runway, the only way to do it is shorten a runway.
Wow.
That would eliminate just about all the air service here.
Wow.
So we can't have that. We don't want to be in that position. So we continue to try to convince all the powers that be that that's what we need to do. A lot of people think that would guarantee more air service. It doesn't. At the end of the day, it's an enabling project that would enable us to be able to fly to, say, Los Angeles with certain types of aircraft.
Well, a bigger plane, and a bigger plane needs a longer runway.
And then most of them today can take off and land. The challenge is most of the airplanes are out there today. If you wanted to go to a Los Angeles, they can't go there with a full load of fuel and passengers off of this runway length. Landing's usually not the problem. It's taking off.
Oh.
And an airline, when you're working for max profitability, don't care much for the idea of flying somewhere and not being able to carry a full load of passengers. So that is a challenge for us, but that runway would be an enabling project that would enable us to have that service, not necessarily is going to drive anything.
Considering today's environment and how tense it is, and certainly there have been lots of airports in the news, near accidents, all that kind of stuff, and they all seem to have different reasons as to why they might have happened. How do you, well, let's look at it this way. What measures are in place to deal with some of your biggest security concerns? What is your biggest security concern for this airport?
It's the same here as it is any other airport. It's that letting your guard down. There are a lot of things that have been put in place over the years since 9/11. This airport was built pre 9/11, so it has some challenges there, but we've got a really nice setup in what we've got now. We need to make some improvements to be able to move more people through, but it's one of the best examples. People here are very used to parking out front, sometimes leaving their car unattended. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest security risks there are.
Wow.
And I actually had a couple of very close misses in a prior life before I came down here. So it is something that's near and dear to our heart. You can't assume because we're a small community that nothing's going to happen here. If you go back to 9/11, look at where some of those guys took off from. Right. They were small airports. So you got to stay on top of it. You got to have great partnerships. We've got a partner in the TSA that a lot of people may criticize some of the stuff that they do, but they've got, especially here in Roanoke, some really great people that do a great job every day and a very tough job. Yeah. We have our own police force, but we also rely on some great partners and mutual aid partners here around us in Roanoke City, the county, the state. So it takes all those. It takes that army.
How do you relate to some of these other smaller airports? If there was bad weather, do you have to stretch it then when we've got Smith Mountain Lake, we have Lynchburg, we have Virginia Tech, and they all have airport, New River Valley Airport. Mm-hmm. Do they draw on you? The fact that they're so close, do you get lots of traffic back and forth between this airport and those airports? People fly on in then to utilize this one, especially from Lynchburg, for instance?
Not a lot. Not
Okay.
a lot. You get more driving traffic than you do air traffic between the airports. And the only one out of those airports that actually has commercial service is Lynchburg. And Lynchburg represents a significant chunk of our passengers out of ROA. And the Lynchburg airport still carries maybe 12% of the total traffic that we would consider potentially Roanoke's.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually nice to have. And a lot of times if you have an alternative that's a little closer, if the airplane has a divert or something, it's always not a bad thing to have fairly close. But we want all those passengers to fly our way, because where people may think that we make a windfall out of airfares, we don't get anything out of airfares.
Right.
We get that little $4.50 PFC that's on your ticket,
Wow.
and that's it. And so the more people and more operations we have, it not only brings in more revenue that we can then use to improve the airport, but it also makes us eligible for a bigger chunk of grant money from the federal government or the state. So all that's very important to us. That's why it's important to fly our way, because we need to have that ability to grow. We don't get any local tax funding. It's all coming from either the PFCs, the revenue that we generate here through the parking lot or the concessions.
But that's not much.
That's all it's all of our money. Whatever we make has to go back into operating and maintaining this airport. So it takes that and then some to make some of these big improvements that we need to make.
Well, you've also done things to establish a relationship and an awareness to put yourself front of mind for our community. One of them was a 5K on the ROA, which I think is
we did that for
23.
A couple of years.
Yeah,
Yep, we did that for a couple of years. It was a lot of fun. We raised a lot of money for the Cancer Center for Corellia in those 2 years. Unfortunately, the runway configuration here in certain types of weather can be kind of challenging for us. So last year we did something a little different. We partnered with Special Olympics Virginia, and we did a plane pull.
What's that?
Adjacent to the runways. So we had
like a tractor pull?
It actually is FedEx loaned their Boeing 757 to the Special Olympics, and you go out and get teams of 25, put them on a rope, and see who can pull that airplane the fastest.
Oh, that is funny.
And it all goes to a good cause because it's all fundraising, and we generated over $80,000 for Special Olympics Virginia last year.
Wow.
So
Are you going to do something like that again?
we are planning to do the plane pull right now. We've got September the 27th red circle on our calendars and working towards that. Undecided whether we're going to try to do the 5K again right now. We may need to try to do it in a different way because we're going to be rehabilitating a taxiway and a runway here in the next year or so. So we need to make sure the first thing we've got to do is serve the air customers, and we'll do the fun stuff along with it if we can.
How has the airline industry changed, particularly post-pandemic? And I'm thinking about, I know one way I think it's changed, and that is people are requesting more legroom.
It is. I think it's changed us in a lot of ways. One is I think we got, in some cases in a good way, we got very good at doing virtual business. So the business travel is not quite fully back to where it was, but the leisure traffic has certainly made up for it. And when I say business traffic, the traditional business traffic that's used to get out and press the flesh and sell or whatever you did. But we still have a lot of business travel, but it is in a lot of cases because we are working from home more,
right,
and commuting to work, or we have more time, and I think we all got pinned up for the better part of a year and a half, and we don't like being pinned up, so we're flying more. But we've also seen an influx, even though the population hasn't changed in this region a tremendous amount. The population's kind of changed out. We have, I think, a population now that is a little more, maybe not affluent, but a little more likely to get out and go somewhere to enjoy their life a little bit. So I think we're seeing that perk up. We've certainly seen a jump in the leisure traffic. That's certainly what Allegiant saw when they decided to put the Sarasota flight in. The potential's there, and we're continuing to try to push it.
One of the other major contributions that this airport makes to the community is to handle not just people, but cargo.
Absolutely.
And can you just take a moment and explain how in the heck that works? Because we see UPS planes and FedEx planes flying in and out of here all the time. How vital is that to Roanoke?
It is, well, it is extremely vital to Roanoke and the region. Cargo is not a tremendous moneymaker for the airport itself. So a lot of people would question, well, why do you put money into making sure you can serve it? Because it is such an economic impact on the region, and it really does grow the economic vitality of the airport. So all those people over there that work those UPS and FedEx airplanes obviously are, again, contributing to our local economy. But it's all that product that goes in and out. So that by itself is the nature of our community. And as more manufacturing is done, all those kind of things, more and more cargo grows. We want to be ready for anything that comes. If a certain other company came in here that just opened a distribution center up in northern Roanoke, wanted to put their airplanes in here, we want to have a plan to be able to accommodate it. So that's why in our master plan we've identified areas to grow cargo. Is really, we're going to get the landing fee off the airplane. We're going to get a little bit of rent, but the impact is really to the community, not to the airport so much.
Do you need a bigger runway for those bigger, heavier? They look bigger and heavier. I mean, I would think you'd almost.
So those are the biggest airplanes. Delta and Allegiant both fly the Airbus 320, but the 757 of FedEx and the A300 of UPS are the biggest airplanes coming in right now. We get occasional charters that are that size, but not on a regular basis. So those airplanes they can fly in and out of here fine. They have some limitations on if they were going further and wanting to put more fuel on it,
right?
Or if their loads pick up. Those could all be challenges. But right now you're talking about most of the time those airplanes are flying from here to Louisville, here to Greensboro, or Memphis. So it's right now we're good, but ideally you want to be able to make sure that if they business is there and they want to grow, they have the ability to grow.
I gotcha. Well, thank you so much. It's been so enlightening.
It's been
to talk to you, Mike, about all that is involved with this airport, which is a tremendous amount.
Well, we enjoyed it. We enjoyed talking about it, and hopefully we get another chance to do this again down the road. Well, we appreciate your time.
We're glad you were in traffic control for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.